What would you do if a century-old family portrait looked calm and perfect until the mirror behind them showed a figure no one else could see and an echo of a child who wasn't there? Keep it, return it, or dig until the truth looks back at you? Tell me in the comments. Then, watch closely. The October air in Chicago had that clean metallic bite that makes old floors creak a little louder. The Riverside mansion had been locked for years. Now its doors were open, and people drifted through like a low tide, lifting objects from shelves and leaving small blank spaces behind. Sophia Martinez didn't come for bargains. She came for stories. She moved with cotton gloves and a linen tote, not touching anything until she was ready to listen to it. In the wood-paneled library, walnut, dark as tea, she found a neat scatter of framed photographs on a mahogany desk. Weddings, a boy in a uniform, a crooked school picture where someone had tried to straighten the world with tape. And then, the silver frame. It wasn't the biggest or the brightest. It was simply the one that felt finished. Real silver, softened at the edges by 100 careful cleanings. The photograph inside wore a studio stamp at the bottom. Hartwell and Company, Halsted Street, 1903. A formal parlor, a mantel with a heavy mirror, a man standing, a woman seated. Between them, on her lap, a baby in a baptismal gown of lace so fine it seemed to float. Everything radiated poise. The father's chin was set, the mother's eyes steady, the child grave in that way very young infants sometimes are, as if they've arrived with a memory. The composition felt balanced, safe, comforting. Sophia tilted the frame to avoid glare. That's when the comfort ended. In the mirror above the mantel, a second story waited. Not the clean rectangle of a camera under a black cloth, not a light stand. A narrow human figure stood behind the lens, draped head to toe in dark fabric, arms extended low as if holding something still. The veil pooled at the shoulders. The hands were gloved. The position was wrong for equipment and too deliberate for furniture. Sophia looked closer. On the mantel, the clock face was clear in the reflection. 11:17. Lilies in a low vase. A chair draped in black crepe, the fabric of mourning. And something else that should have been simple, but wasn't. Where the baby's reflection ought to be, the mirror showed only a softened blur, a silvery density that didn't match the room. "Hidden mother," Sophia whispered, heart tapping. She knew the technique. In the days of long exposures, a parent or nurse was often concealed beneath a cloth, just out of frame, to steady a child. You weren't meant to see her. But the mirror had seen her anyway. And maybe more. She bought the portrait without bargaining, the cashier asking if she was all right. "I will be," Sophia said, and meant it in the future tense. If a mirror tells the truth, what does it say when a child leaves no reflection? Sophia's workshop was a small, bright room above a florist in Lincoln Park. City noise clattered up the alley. The scent of damp stems drifted through the floorboards. She spread a cloth, set the frame down, and began. Gloves, breath, a soft brush sweeping away a century's dust. She turned it over. The paper seal on the back was fragile like moth wings. Steam loosened it. A bone folder coaxed it free. The photograph sat on a cream card stamped again with Hartwell & Co. Behind it, tucked where only the curious ever go, was a calling card edged in black. A name pressed in gold. Philip. On the back, a single line in gentle script. "We do not lose our little ones. We only return them." No date, no cause, no explanation, just a name and a sentence that made Sophia look at the baby's face again. The child's gaze was steady, unsmiling. Some infants look like sunshine. This one looked like a small judge. She checked the studio stamp, 1903. So the title on the estate sale flyer, The Riverside House, fit. The Williamsons had lived here for decades. A folded inventory in the sale brochure listed assorted photographs. No wonder this had surfaced. By late afternoon, her laptop glowed with city directories and digitized newspapers. Chicago remembers what it chooses to. 1903 put the Williamsons, Mr. Charles Williamson, his wife Eliza, at Riverside. A note of thanks to St. Agnes Parish in June. A mention of a tea held to benefit widows of the Iroquois theater fire. Then, 4 months after the photograph date, the listing moved. Smaller address. Another year, a boarding arrangement. Temporary. The house would be rented, then, eventually, sold.
None of that proved anything. People move. Fortunes shift. But the timeline pressed at the back of her mind like a thumbprint on glass. She went back to the image. Mirrors in portraits are gossip. They hold the things you were not supposed to see. The figure behind the camera was unmistakable now. The curve of a cheekbone under the veil, the angle of the head, the suggestion of a mouth. Hands at the level of the baby's waist, as if holding the gown steady. A kindness, a technique, a secret. And yet the blur where the baby's reflection should be. What was that? Not a retouch, not paint. Light itself seemed thicker in that spot, as if it had rewritten something. If light can write a memory, can it write over one too? The next morning, Sophia carried the portrait to a conservator she trusted, Dr. Oddity Mera at the university. Dr. Mera had a voice like warm tea and a microscope that could spot a grain of sand in midnight. They set the photograph under raking light. The silver gelatin surface awoke with detail, thread in lace, pores in skin, the tiniest scratch on the mantel where a clock key had missed. Hidden mother is clear. Very common before shorter exposures, not meant to be visible, but that mirror. She adjusted a polarizing filter. There's density here. Her fingertip hovered over the area where the baby's reflection should be. See how the grain builds? That's not a brush-in. That's exposure. Double? Sophia asked. Possibly, Dr. Mera said. Glass plates were expensive. Studios reused them. If the emotion wasn't fully cleared, a ghost of a prior sitter could linger. Usually, you'd never notice. But reflective surfaces amplify the leftover image. Sophia swallowed. Leftover image of what? Of whoever stood in front of this mantel earlier. Another child, perhaps. Maybe the day before. We can't know. The mirror is where a faint oval returns most strongly. Sophia watched the almost face emerge and recede as the angle changed. There. Not there. There again. The suggestion of a brow, a cheek, an ear. An echo that had waited a century for someone to tilt the frame just so. It doesn't prove relation, Dr. Mera warned gently. We mustn't claim more than we know, but sometimes cities are smaller than they seem. Sophia nodded. She wasn't looking for a scandal. She was looking for a story that made sense. The calling card with Philip's name. The timing. The move. The mirror that wouldn't stop talking. Dr. Mera found something else under magnification. Faint, greasy half-moons pressed into the mat where a thumb had steadied the wet print. A photographer's touch. And look, tiny graphite marks. She traced the unprinted border. Keep him steady, no fuss. And initials. H.H. Hartwell? Sophia guessed. Likely, Dr. Mera said. Studios kept ledgers. If Hartwell & Co. survived, their books might too. Sophia left carrying a scan and a new question. If the mirror remembered two truths, who else might have noticed one of them? What did the photographer write down when the lens stopped, but his eyes kept seeing? Archives keep the city's soft machinery turning. In the cool basement of the Chicago Photographic Guild, an archivist named Leon Park slid a gray box toward Sophia and smiled the way you do when a stranger asks about your favorite subject. Hartwell & Co., Halsted Street, 1898 to 1906. The ledgers smelled faintly of starch and coal. Neat columns. Names, amounts. Notes in an elegant, practical hand. October 1903. Williamson, Mr. and Mrs. with infant Philip. Parlor portrait. Mantel mirror. 11 a.m. Payment, $15 deposit. Balance due on delivery. Technical. Window light east. Reflector borrowed. Baby unsettled. Use veil for nurse. Personal. Mother protective. Father impatient. Infant startles when father approaches, calmed only by mother's voice. Sophia let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. Further down the page, lilies placed on mantel, family insist. Said they are fresh from chapel. Another note, almost an aside. Requested some poses not be included in proofs. Mr. Wee declined handheld pose. Leon looked up from his side of the table. This is unusually descriptive for Hartwell. He usually stuck to technicals. Did Hartwell note anything about a prior sitting? Another infant, same room, same day? Leon paged back. Earlier entry, A. Browning, Tuesday. Child, feverish, rescheduled, plate ruined by crying. Not our day, but the week. So the studio had recently photographed another child. Or tried. Doesn't link the families, cautioned Leon. I know, Sophia said, meaning it. But the mirror is stubborn.
There was one more sheet in the folder. A letter dated 3 weeks after the session. Mrs. E. Williamson requesting additional prints, one for my sister, one for the priest. A line near the end. If you made any notes about the day, please keep them for me. Some truths are easier to hold when written by someone else. Sophia read the sentence twice. She could hear Eliza's voice under it, formal, careful, asking for help without asking for help. If a family brings lilies to a portrait, what loss are they not naming? The Riverside mansion had shed its name and kept its bones. A developer had divided it long ago into quiet apartments. The current owner of the old parlor level, a retired music teacher named Mrs. Hargreaves, buzzed her in and led her through rooms that had learned new furniture but remembered their light. I've always wondered about the families, Mrs. Hargreaves said, fingers tapping an old piano key. There's a little closet that used to be bigger. When we renovated, we found wallpaper behind a false wall. Left some under glass there. The preserved strip was pale green with vines. In one corner, dark smudges dappled the print at a height that matched a cradle rail. Mrs. Hargreaves had framed it like a relic. Dust? Sophia asked. Something else, Mrs. Hargreaves said. A contractor friend swabbed a couple of stains out of curiosity. He said a few spots matched traces found in old, soothing syrups, tonics from the era that were too strong, really. I can't vouch for his science, we didn't do anything official, but it gave me chills. Do you know the Williamsons? Sophia asked. Only in the way houses speak, she said. Quiet, precise, careful with their afternoons. Sophia didn't write any of that as fact. She wrote it in the column she keeps for stories that might be true. On her way out, Mrs. Hargreaves opened a shallow drawer in a built-in cabinet. Inside were 2 items previous owners had left: a child's white ribbon and a small envelope stamped with a stationer's address on Halstead. Empty, except for the faint ghost of a scent that survived 100 years. Something floral and medicinal at once. Old tonics were everywhere then, for headaches, for nerves, for sleepless children who wouldn't settle. Many were harmless, sugar and herbs. Many weren't. In 1903, very few people asked the right questions about what made quiet come so quickly. Sophia stepped back into the street, feeling the shape of the whole story, but not its ending. The mirror gave her a hidden figure. The ledger gave her notes. The house had given her a preserved whisper. She needed one voice that belonged to the family itself. What would a mother write if she knew the truth and could not say it out loud? The email surprised her at midnight, a subject line that read, "Regarding the Williamson photograph." The sender introduced herself as Nora Bell, great-granddaughter of Eliza's sister. She had seen Sophia's query on a local history forum. "My grandmother kept a small packet of letters. She said they were to be passed to someone who will read them with care. Would you come?" Nora's apartment held the kind of quiet that makes you speak softly. She brought out a box wrapped in tissue and ribbon that had been tied and untied many times. Inside, 3 letters, close written in a neat hand, Eliza's hand, if the signature matched. The first was undated, but referenced June. "Philip is 8 weeks today. He is strong, and I am trying to be. We sat for a photograph. The man at the studio was patient with me. He agreed to place lilies on the mantel, though it was not his fashion. I felt I needed them near." The second, written later that autumn. "We will leave this house soon, I think. It holds too much quiet. I wish to call it peace, but it is not that. There is a stillness that feels like being watched." The third letter was the one that tightened Sophia's throat. "I have learned to measure my hours by Philip's breath. Some afternoons he grows so drowsy after a spoon of tonic that I fear I cannot wake him. I do not know if the remedy is remedy at all. I have asked that it be put away. I am told I fret too much. When I spoke with the priest, he said God asks us to trust. I do. But I will also watch. If anything should befall us, tell the truth you find, even if I could not speak it." Sophia touched the paper and felt the tininess of the pen strokes, the discipline of someone taught to write on lines that weren't there.
"Grandmother never spoke ill of anyone," Nora said. "She would only say that Aunt Eliza understood grief too well." Sophia didn't lift the letters from speculation into accusation. She simply let them sit where Eliza had placed them, careful, specific, almost unbearably polite. If a letter asks you to tell the truth you find, how far do you go? Sophia compiled her notes and visited Detective Maria Santos in the cold case unit, not for charges no one could bring, but for the discipline of a mind that weighs evidence without romance. Detective Santos listened, the way good detectives and good teachers do. No interruptions, just a long, steady attention. The mirror figure, the plate ghost, the lilies from a chapel, the ledger notes, the preserved wallpaper, the letters, the move soon after, the calling card with Philip's name.
"Here's what's strong," the detective said, tapping the table. "Technical analysis from the conservator, studio ledger with personal observations, family letters with period language about a tonic, church lilies the same day, a timeline of a household shortly after. Here's what's not provable: cause, motive, direct link between the child and any substance. You've done something different than solve a case. You've built a careful frame for grief to be seen correctly." Sophia felt relief at the clarity. The detective leaned closer to the photograph scan. "The mirror makes this. Without it, it's a lovely portrait. With it, it's testimony. You don't need a crime to honor what this shows. It shows that help was needed to keep a baby still during long exposures. It shows that the photographers saw something tense enough to write down. It shows that a mother asked a stranger to preserve what his eyes noticed." Detective Santos added one gentle suggestion. "If you share this publicly, say what you know and label the rest. People will fill in the blank spaces anyway. You can at least label the rooms on the floor plan." When the evidence can't speak, will the mirror speak kindly and precisely for it? The museum's small gallery of early photography smelled faintly of wood polish and time. The Williamson portrait hung at eye level, its silver newly awake. Next to it, a placard Sophia helped write. "Parlor Portrait with Mirror, Hartwell and Company, Chicago, 1903. Reflective surfaces in early photography sometimes reveal studio methods, such as a concealed caregiver steadying an infant during long exposures, hidden mother. Mirrors can also amplify faint residual images on reused glass plates, creating a ghostly echo of a sitter from an earlier session. In this portrait, the mirror suggests both a veiled figure behind the camera and a faint oval where the infant's reflection would be. Ledger notes from the studio mention lilies fresh from chapel, an unsettled child, and a protective mother. Records indicate the family left their home soon after. The rest is unverified and should be read as context rather than conclusion. Visitors leaned in. Visitors stepped back. Some saw the figure immediately and made a sound they didn't know they'd make. Others squinted until the shape resolved and then lifted a hand to their chest. Sophia stood off to the side and watched a child of about 10 look again, and then glance at his own reflection in the gallery glass. "He looks like he knows something," the boy said, and his father nodded, not taking his eyes off the portrait. If you stand there long enough, the room in the photograph seems to breathe. The lilies stop being decoration and become a message for anyone paying attention. The clock at 11:17 ticks, somehow, a century late. The mirror, once mere ornament, becomes the witness who never blinks. We do not know everything about Charles and Eliza. We do not know everything about Philip. We do know they tried to hold still long enough to be remembered. We know a photographer wrote down what his eyes told him, and we know a mother saved words for a sister, and a sister saved them for us. And we know this: some pictures look peaceful until you see what the mirror saw. So what would you have done in Sophia's place? Keep the portrait, return it to the family line, or put it on a wall so strangers could learn what a reflection can hold? Tell me below. And if you want more hidden histories like this, watch till the end and join us at Eyes That Know.